circular economy. I already mentioned the impact that it has on the need we should be considering of reviewing our processes of consumption. The food industry is a very important chain of this link of this chain for that to be observed. As I was saying, the industry is a sort of an intermediate. It demands products and consumers demand what they want. Consumers are much more conscious today, and we are consumers after all, really. We have become more conscious, and we want to save the earth we have. We don't want to deplete all the resources we have so soon. So it is economically feasible for us to learn and improve our processes. Therefore, we brought 4 important companies: Bayer, Ambev, PepsiCo, Kerry, and have I missed anyone? No, PepsiCo, Bayer, Kerry, Ambev. Yeah, I mentioned them all the 4 companies. And I invited these companies to speak about what PepsiCo is doing, and for that, we'll invite the ambassador Roberto Azevêdo, is the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer of PepsiCo and Chairman of PepsiCo Foundation. Please, Roberto, the floor is yours. Okay, but before that, I'd like to present each one according to their speeches, what they have to present. So the idea is for each one of the participants, the speakers, to speak about what they are doing in their companies, and in the end, we can have a final discussion on what we understand of what we have in common, and so on. Okay, Roberto, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Waldyr. It's a pleasure to be with all of you in this afternoon. Well, I think that the subject couldn't be more current because, well, why are we talking about this subject at this moment? Because the food production system is under pressure. Clearly, that is true all around the world. PepsiCo, I'm not sure if all of you know, but more than 60% of the PepsiCo revenue comes from food products, and therefore we feel that we have a role to perform so that we can help solving the problems we are facing in the global food system. And there are conjectural factors such as logistical factors, several structures that were present in the logistical point of view, and now we are suffering with aspects such as the Russian-Ukrainian war, and well, sometimes it's quite hard for us to place a product inside a container because the carrier company wants to know what are the companies related to that product, what are the inputs, so that they can be sure they are not keeping any kind of relationship with countries or companies that are being sanctioned, and that complicates matters of price and timing and so on. And there is an expectation of reduced crops and like important inputs such as barley, wheat, soybean, and these are products that are very often originated in Russia and Ukraine, and all these aspects cause the FAO to make an estimate of a price increase around 22%. And well, that is already considering very high levels, 22%. And these turbulences are very impacting, especially in developing countries. I believe these are contextual factors that we can overcome with time, but structural problems are much worse, and the climate change is most likely the worst of these aspects. We see nowadays a much higher frequency of natural disasters like natural fires, droughts, hurricanes, floods, and these things are happening like almost every year. This is quite concerning to companies that depend on a good working of the climate, and we understand that an average increase of 1 degree Celsius can reduce important harvests like wheat, corn, and others in up to 10%. And we can see that around 1/3 of carbon emissions in the world, they come from the agricultural sector. And that is like a never-ending cycle. The more you have carbon emissions, the more you reduce the yield, and then you have to have larger areas being planted, and this is a never-ending cycle that you cannot escape from. And how can we solve these problems? One of the solutions that was being mentioned in one of these presentations was the aspect of regenerative agriculture. And to talk about that, we must explain what it is. What is regenerative agriculture? Well, it doesn't have a clear-cut definition. There are many forums discussing that. And what is the difference of regenerative agriculture and sustainable agriculture? What are the differences here? And as to regenerative agriculture, it seems that we are reaching a sort of a consensus. The first is the sustainability of the soil, and then carbon sequestering. There is also the preservation of water resources, preservation of biodiversity, and improvement of the life quality of people who live in the field. At PepsiCo, I believe that we have adopted a program that is called Positive PepsiCo, and regenerative agriculture is at the core of this program. This is a program that transforms the company operations from end to end. When we look at the production, the distribution, manufacturing, distribution, sales, and management of waste post-consumption. Well, I said that regenerative agriculture is core to this program. And why is that? Because the agricultural footprint of PepsiCo is for around 25 commodities that are being produced in 3 million hectares of plantations in 60 different countries, with 250,000 people being reached by this program. And another important point is that for PepsiCo, agriculture is responsible for 34% of our carbon emissions. And this is not quite easy to control. The conclusion that we can take from these facts is that PepsiCo will not reach its carbon emission neutrality target if regenerative agriculture is not adopted by its suppliers. So what have we done to promote the adoption of the regenerative agriculture by our suppliers? So the first thing is investing in advanced technology. When it comes to irrigation, for instance, we are developing technologies in partnership with other companies that reduce the emission of carbon and methane in around 60% in the planted areas. These technologies are being used today in India, Vietnam, United States, and that has helped reducing the usage of water in up to 50%. Investments in the circularity of the potato peel. So we get this potato peel, and it supplies around 70% of the energy that is consumed in our plants, 3/4. Furthermore, the waste of the potato peel that is used to generate energy is transformed into fertilizer. This reduces carbon emissions in the production of potato in up to 70%, besides reducing the waste. There are also some advanced techniques in rotation, crop rotation, and so on. Producers try usually to employ what has worked in the past. They rarely try to look for risky innovations, especially those that require investments. So we have this model that we are implementing all around the world, and it's called Sustainable Demonstration Farms. We have 3 of these farms in Brazil, and there is a short video that I'd like our colleagues to play to us. I'm not sure where the image is going to be displayed, but well, let's see if it works out.
Nós, como companhia, temos propósito ainda maior do que apenas produzir alimentos de qualidade. Entendo que nós podemos promover a sustentabilidade e trazer resiliência à agricultura. E por meio das demo farms, nós realmente conseguimos fazer isso. A gente traz tecnologia ao agricultor, a gente busca novas oportunidades e a gente realmente promove a troca de experiências.
A produção de hortaliças se tornou um segmento importante dentro da nossa atividade, na qual nós ainda estamos hoje, na produção de diversas culturas que de certo modo se complementam e que ajudam muito na longevidade da atividade como um todo. Na PepsiCo nós encontramos um parceiro que tem a mesma filosofia de trabalho, a mesma visão da atividade agrícola, que preza pela produção de modo sustentável da matéria-prima que ela usa na indústria, que são as batatas.
So just to have an idea of what we've been doing, but the important thing is that we need to think what is lacking, what is missing, what do we need to do to really complement this transition from traditional agriculture to regenerative agriculture. And evidently, producers are the key part in this process, and they can only do this transition if they have some benefit out of it, get some benefit out of it, right, from this transition. And this translates into financial results, financial conditions, right? So this transition from this traditional agricultural to a regenerative agriculture, this benefits in terms of financial accountability, they will appear in 3 to 4 years. But during these 3-4 years, there's an investment that needs to be done and needs to be financed. And currently, there is no such financing. It's too incipient. It's disappointing. For example, I don't know if many of you have been in COP26. They almost didn't talk about agriculture. We're talking about climate change. We're 1/3 of the carbon emissions are from the agricultural sector, and they didn't even discuss agriculture. So, in Davos, I asked people why didn't they discuss agriculture, and their excuse was that there was a summit on agriculture, and they wouldn't want to repeat all the subjects. So there's no such excuse for COP27. So we're going to count on the support of Egyptian government, organizers of other countries, participating countries, so that agriculture has a position of emphasis to be able to finance the transition into regenerative agriculture. And these investments that need to be done, they may involve several mechanisms. They may involve carbon credits, for example. The producer, when they do this transition, they immediately start to receive carbon credits, or tax incentives related to investments in terms of regenerative agriculture, philanthropic donations, survey financing. There's a lot of opportunities and mechanisms to create these mechanisms that will allow to have this financial incentive, without which the producers will not do this transition. So just to wrap up, to have our other colleagues do their presentations and comments, Brazil is one of the main producers of food in the world, and this has a burden in terms of climate change. Brazil announced important goals in COP26, reduce emissions by 50%, ending illegal deforestation, achieving neutral emissions by 2050, and all of these challenges need the contribution of all the links in this chain, in the supply chain. I hope the governments seize this and look for partnerships with companies, such as the companies that are present here, to really try to think how Brazil to have liabilities in terms of carbon emissions, to have assets in terms of carbon sequestering in agricultural production. So PepsiCo has invested a lot in this field. I'm really interested to hear what our colleagues here have to say, what our companies have been doing. And again, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here today. Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. And now for your contribution. It's really important to have this discussion, this exchange of experiences here. Let's call Alessandra Fajardo. She's Director of Partnerships for the Productive Chains in Latin America for Bayer. Welcome, Alessandra. Show my presentation. Thank you for the invitation. I think the subject is extremely important, and it's a pleasure to be here discussing this topic with all of you. I try to focus on the part of losses that we have in our production chain, so inwards our company, but I brought a few global figures that involve all the losses and waste, so that we can have the basis to have this discussion. Currently, we think about food loss and food waste. If it was a country, it would be the third larger emitter of GHG, greenhouse gases, only behind China and the United States, which are the two largest ones. So the idea to bring these slides to show how big the problem is, how much does this problem affect everyone. Considering in terms of food loss and food waste, we have more than 250 cubic kilometers of water that is lost. And the most impacting figure is that 28% of global agricultural lands don't reach our tables, don't reach the tables of the consumers. So 28% of the cultivated area is lost during the process, in the beginning, in the middle, or the end of the processing of any type of food. In addition, we're talking about other inputs as well. So 33% of fertilizers don't go to foods that really reach the tables of the consumers. So just a little bit more of these figures to see the dimension of these losses that we're discussing. I can't see really well from this far, but we have the possibility of correcting this issue. Here's a comparison on each of these subjects, each of these issues. If we reduce them by 50%, we would be able to close gaps that we have to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, right, established by the UN. So if we reduce losses by 50%, we are able to achieve all SDGs that we have. So this action, it can happen. It can happen with everyone together. Mr. Ambassador was right when he said that partnerships are essential to solve this issue. But what exactly is food loss? What I emphasized here is the beginning of the supply chain, which would be the agricultural production. We have losses in transportation, losses in consumption, and losses in production. So this is a chain. It doesn't happen in only one link. It doesn't impact only one part of this process. And many times you don't have the data available regarding production. A lot of this data, a lot of this research talk about after harvest or from harvest on, but if you don't have good handling, for example, pest handling and so on, you have losses before the harvest. Some studies show that if you think internally inside your company or your farm, it would be approximately 15% that you have of losses before a harvest. So this is a very important figure. So there's a lot of issues over the cultures and and it doesn't matter what type of culture and how it's produced. At Bayer, we have been working with regenerative agriculture, and if we don't take care over this culture, this process, there's no guarantees that you have no loss. So regardless of the production system that you choose, you are subject and you need to try to avoid these losses during production. So if you think in terms of waste, food waste, there are some supermarket data here that the consumers, they pick the fruits and vegetables that they think that they look better or that they are pleasant. Oh, in my house we like this type of fruit or vegetable, and there's some waste there at the supermarkets. They have a lot of waste of food that consumers don't want to buy, and this would enter in terms of circularity. It would involve actions that are being doing, but we need to expand them even more and more and unify them more and more, and we need to work together with this. After that, we have restaurants. There are campaigns so that you have smaller plates, so less food, so that you don't throw food away. And of course, other places as well where we can have these food waste and losses. So this waste, that's why we call losses and waste, because the waste is from the supermarket onward and losses is in the part of the chain before that. But how is it divided? And now I need help from our friends here because I can't see all the figures here. But basically here in Latin America, I'm sorry, most of the losses are in the production part. In countries in Europe and United States, for example, the losses actually have waste, not losses, because it's during consumption. But here we have a lot of losses in production. All the way to the industry, not only agricultural production itself. This other map shows in an easier way to see how this is divided. Not that we don't have logistic problems or consumption issues here. We have all of these issues as well. But basically, Latin America, the big losses are in the first link of the process, which is the production. So how can we act on this? Embrapa says that losses start from the seed. So in terms of thinking about Bayer and how we work, we have working about germplasm and the environmental part, control of pests and disease, and control of works together with the harvest or post-harvest. And we work with a lot of tools as well that we can bring, such as partnerships or training to the producers so that they're able to so that they can work and how to work with the culture, the crops, different stages. We have digital agriculture, which can allows us to minimize the effects and minimize the needs and only apply inputs where they're really necessary. We have done a lot of things in terms of environmental conservation. We have a partnership with PepsiCo. They received 30 bee hotels to improve the environmental side of their production in terms of agricultural, regenerative agriculture. And we understand that part of this is on our field of work, but the other part comes with these partnerships. So what is outside our company, that's where we can work together, and we believe that we are going to be able to have a lot of partners that will allow us to do so. It's not only one part of the process. We need to solve all of these parts, all of these different things. If we have it's no use if we have perfect harvest, but then you have losses during transportation. With fruit, you know how difficult it is to transport fruits how much specialization and the need of more technology and techniques is important for fruit. Otherwise, you go to any of these hubs like Sergio, for example, which receive the products, and half of the products goes to waste because it was all in a truck and poorly stored. Everything is dented and nobody wants to buy it. So here what I'm talking about is we are open to work with other links in this chain, and that we have been doing a lot of things to try to position ourselves the correct way, and how we can address and eliminate this losses and waste all over the chain of the crop. We have a sustainability goal that is to reduce by 30% of GHG gas emissions in agriculture and in the countries and cultures where we work with. So we have carbon projects in the field, regenerative agriculture projects with more than 1,800 producers to really be able to gather as much information as we can, and precise information, and with a lot of details, so that these producers are really able to reduce these losses. For us, our challenge is health for all, hunger for none, and this is connected to the subject. And we are here. We are open to answer your questions or any further discussions. Thank you. Thank you, Alessandra. This has been great. Welcome. We welcome your comments. Logistic, we know it's a big of the problem, one of the biggest problems here in Brazil. It has improved, but we still suffer a lot with this part of the chain. The cold chambers, we don't have. There's no habit. No, we just transport it as it is. So yeah, we do it as it's always been done. And myself, as a producer, as an exporter of fruit, I see great advancements in this field. This forum is an example of such advancements. The Brazilian producers, they have been doing their homework. We need more partnerships. We need that the supply chain as a whole connects to each other. And I'm sure that, I'm living that Brazilian producers, they're really doing their homework. So now we need to connect more and move forward together, right? Okay, now I'll call to the floor Juan Aguiriano, Chief of Sustainability at Kerry. Is that right?
No. The answer is no. And if you read the definition of FAO for sustainable food and agriculture, are we providing nutritious and accessible food for everyone? And are we respecting the ecosystem? And the answer is no, clearly. I've discussed with a lot of colleagues and stakeholders in the industry, and we need to accelerate. We have a system today that is designed for huge amounts and low cost. That's served us so far, but we have a system which is fragile, as my colleagues have discussed. And we see it now, when the system is hit by a crisis, it doesn't respond very well. We have today, according to the FAO, 10 weeks of global wheat inventory. And food and fuel prices are skyrocketing, having an impact on fertilizers prices and supply chain, like Ambassador Azevêdo told us, Roberto told us. And this is a big challenge for everybody. So how well we're going to be able to navigate that crisis in the next 2 to 3 years will determine also and predict how well we're going to be addressing the problems until 2050. And everybody talks about 2050 like a magic date. And in reality, 2050 starts today. It's not something that can happen tomorrow. We have a responsibility as an industry, and we've heard our colleagues here that talk about how do we do that. So if you imagine, I have a certain age, my kids are in their 20s, they probably will live 20 years older than me. So if everybody lives 20 years more, and the population goes from 8 billion to 10 billion, we need a lot more food. And if we continue like this, we would need 2 more planets. We already are using 2, but we need 4. We all know we don't have these planets, right? And so the countdown to 2050, I don't want to be tragical, but it's happening now, right? So I wanted to set the context. Speed and acceleration is of the essence, and impact is of the essence. 10 billion people means 80% more food, 70% more protein. How can we feed everyone? And this is the topic of the discussion today in this meeting and this conference, right? And so complex problems don't have simple solutions. Let's face it. We in Kerry don't have the answer alone. Alessandra said it's collaboration. So it's really very interesting that we were put together on this panel. I do believe in the power of partnerships, right? So in Kerry, we look at this at 3 levels. Influencing what we buy from regenerative agriculture, and I'm totally in agreement with my 2 colleagues before. We need to buy from agriculture commodities that preserve the soil, preserve the water, preserve the biodiversity, and do not emit too much carbon. It's as simple as that. And we are committing in Kerry to do that for 100% of the raw materials that we buy, the priority raw materials that we buy, right, by 2030. The second I will speak more about is eliminate food waste. Food waste is a scandal, 30%. Which industry produces 30% waste? This is like 1 car in 3 scrapped out of the factory before going onto the road. We can't continue like that. And then sustainable protein, right? We need to have enough protein as everybody wants to eat a diet that ensures health and nutrition for themselves, right? Let me talk very quickly on regenerative agriculture because my expert colleagues talked about that much better than me, but it's really around improving these topics I already talked about and making sure that it's really sustainable in that dimension. So let me talk about food waste. We talked about 30% of food waste out there. It's if it's a country, Alessandra said it, it's nearly as big as China and US in terms of carbon emissions. It also means that as we have 900 million people going hungry to bed every day, food waste could nourish 2 billion people. So we have more than enough food around without using more land, more resources. We just need to making sure we reverse that trend to be able to feed 2 billion people. So if I talk about 2 categories in particular, which I will focus today, Alessandra talked about produce. I'm going to talk about 2 process categories, meat and bread. Meat is the largest food waste category in value. Every day, 20% of meat around the world is not consumed. 1 kilo of meat is up to 50 kilos of CO2 or 15,000 liters of water. So every kilo of meat we can consume instead of putting it into the bin is a massive impact. Bread is the largest volume wasted. Can be up to 40 to 50% depending on the countries. So I'll give you an example, 630 million slices every day. That's a lot of slices, right? And in water, again, you have 1,500 liters of water, and you have a lot of 15 kilos of CO2, sorry, 1.5 kilo of CO2 per slice of bread, right? Plus the economic loss, right? Retailers have to write off 2 to 10% of the meat and the bread every day. So one of the most efficient ways to prevent food waste is to extend the shelf life. Give more time to retailers to sell the products, give more time to the consumers to consume the product before it goes bad, right? So in every kilo of food waste, you have a lot of water, a lot of CO2, a lot of economic savings, a lot of biodiversity preservation. So working on that as an industry is fundamental. So Kerry has a lot of solutions in this space. We are the largest food preservation company, and food preservation in a simple way means the food you eat has to be safe, doesn't make you sick when you consume it, It has to last long enough so that it can be consumed, and it needs to be done in a way that it doesn't have chemicals or it doesn't have products that you don't want to have, causing problems for health, right? So we are really driving technologies that enable that in a systemic way. So reducing first food waste. Now the second principle of circular economy is reuse. What you can't reduce, you repurpose. So this is a courtesy of Kerry for AB InBev. I thought I would put a beer here, would put a smile on Caio's face. So we joked in Kerry that we say bread is solid beer and beer is liquid bread. Basically, you can take bread waste and re-ferment it into very nice beer. And you can take liquid beer and take the spent grain from your production and turn it into very nice cereal breakfast again, right? So that's circular economy at its best. And companies like AB InBev and Kerry and others are collaborating into repurposing what used to be waste and now is a byproduct into something useful, which is useful. Instead of giving it to animal consumption, we give it back to the humans, right? Closing that circle is fundamental. And I know that we are also working with PepsiCo in solutions like that around the world. Now, last but not least, I cannot not speak about sustainable protein. And sustainable protein, we won't solve the world with one solution. It has to be across all the crops that provide protein. It has to be all the sources of protein, and it has to be plant-based and animal-based. Needs to become more sustainable in the way it is produced. And so there are a lot of things that can be done in the agriculture field. I'm not going to talk about that. I will talk also what can be done outside agriculture with biotechnology and protein via fermentation and precision fermentation, right? There will be one day where protein will not come only from the big animals. It will also come from the small animals, the bugs, right? And when I talk the bugs, is microbes, right? And so this is an area for investment where Kerry is investing a lot. It is part of the solution and will be increasingly be a place where all the protein companies are investing, including the today industry in Brazil. Some of the leading meat companies are investing in this heavily through startups, right? So to answer the question, we're not innovating at the speed needed, but there are a number of things that can be done to ensure global food sustainability. In Kerry, we've defined that as sustainable nutrition. We currently reach 1 billion consumers through our solutions that we sell to food companies. We have the ambition to reach 2 billion consumers by 2030. We measure that very precisely, and it's about food safety, it's about clean label, it's about sugar, salt, fat reduction, it's about protein transition, it's about personalized nutrition, but it's also about climate change, it's about social impact in agriculture, it's about regenerative agriculture, and last but not least is the topic we talked about today, which is circular economy and food waste. So I am optimistic. There is a future where sustainable food will happen. I have 2 kids, they're 21 and 23. I'm working for them every day, but we need to go faster. So thank you very much.
But at the end of the day, that's the debate. We don't know the path we're going to follow yet, but we all know we want to achieve the best results. Mistakes happen, like in the past, but no producers are really willing to poison the food or setting the forest afire. So good intention is visible, and together I think we can find the best way possible. So let's continue with our friend Caio Miranda. She's Director of Sustainability at Ambev for Latin America, South America. Thank you. Can you hear me? First of all, I'd like to thank for the invitation. I'd like to keep the same level of the previous presentations here, what Alessandra brought in terms of Alessandra brought in terms of data of food loss and food waste is scary. Complementing with Juan, I loved your presentation, not because you showed a beer or a brewery, but it's my favorite presentation. And also thank Roberto because he brought a little bit of the perspective of PepsiCo and how companies can work together. Well, I think all of you know Ambev. If you don't know us, we produce beer. This is our main product. We are really proud to have one of the best beloved brands to our consumers, Brahma, Antarctica, Skol, Stella Artois. For us, agribusiness is our business. At each beer that we serve, it's part of the agribusiness is there because our product is made from natural ingredients, water, malt, and wheat beer. So we're really connected to the agribusiness and really proud of the quality of our product that we deliver to our consumers. And we are also proud of the agribusiness in Brazil. I'm going to show a little bit of our strategy, talk a little bit about our challenges, but we are really, really connected to this market in Brazil. Our purpose is to dream big, to create a future with more cheers. And why we say cheer? Because you don't cheer without your friends, right? Alone at your home at night. Great that I did something good today. No, you want to share these moments with people. You want to share this with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your associates. That's why we think that cheering and toasting is in our purpose. And cheering and toasting is shared prosperity. We can have a very profitable business and we can do our part for the environment. But if things don't get better for everyone, for our consumers, for example, for our producers, for our customers, it needs to improve for the whole chain. So that's why we want to share this prosperity with everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategy. Everything that we call sustainability, we divided into 8 great subjects that are grouped into 3 large blocks. So we say that our product is natural for obvious reasons because of the ingredients that we use. It's an inclusive product because there's a specific product for each type of consumer or each type of occasion. If you want to drink alcohol, we have zero alcohol beer. If you want to drink a product that is similar to wine, we have some beers that deliver higher alcohol levels. If you want a cheaper product, we have that as well. So our product is inclusive, and not only talking about inclusion in our company, in our workforce, but today I'm going to focus on the local, because that's when we link to agriculture. Ambev is a local company. We purchase our ingredients locally, we brew our beer locally, and we deliver locally. So it's important for us that this whole supply chain in which we are included. This is a little bit of our priorities. I'm not going to the detail. We have very clear sustainability goals for the next few years. So 100% of our communities where we act with quality water and access to quality water. We have a few of the indicators here, how we're moving forward. These are our commitments to 2025. 100% of our direct farmers connected and financially empowered and trained as well. 100% of our electricity purchased from renewable sources, and this is connected to our carbon reduction goals as well. 100% of our products either produced or packaged in returnable packaging, so you can get the bottle of beer, drink your beer at home, and then bring the bottle back to the supermarket and trade it for a filled one. And 100% or made of majority recycled content. And we have a goal for our entrepreneurship that we're still defining. We started by training our customers, but we know we can go much further than that. Today we serve 1 million customers all over Brazil, from Acre to Rio Grande do Sul, and from Rondônia, Roraima, many states in Brazil, to all the municipalities. We're there everywhere. You can find our products everywhere in Brazil. I hope that cold, please. And we have a cheer and a toast, right? to celebrate your success, right? So when we talk about agriculture, it's huge in our company. We buy more than 2 million tons of inputs. The region in which we act goes from the north region of Brazil all the way to Patagonia, and we have operations in 4 countries. We malt, barley, corn, cassava. We have currently beers made of cassava. Cashew we use as well. We have a beautiful story with Guaraná Antártica, which is we have our own Guaraná farm, so we are the producers at some moment. And we have small producers that support us. It's completely organic with vertical forest still standing. How agro, we were discussing in other panels, how we can still be sustainable and how we're investing in this field. And we started also the last input that we need to do locally, which is hops. We started producing it. We imported it until last year because of weather aspects, but now we're trying a project in Santa Catarina to produce hops locally. We brought many experts from Czech Republic and Germany to help. Everybody says that's impossible to do it in Brazil. We had our first harvest. Let's see if we can move forward to have a considerable volume producing hops locally. And when you talk about waste reduction, which is the subject here of our panel, talking about what we do internally, we have 2 types, First piece of information is more important. 100% of the ingredients that go into our brewery are used and reused. We don't waste anything of the natural ingredients in our production. And when we talk about the whole production chain, we're able to recycle or reuse 99% that enters the brewery. The 1% is infusion earth, which we use to infuse during the infusion of the beer. We tried using bricks. We couldn't find yet the best solution for this issue, but we've been working on it. We've been working with startups and other companies to try to find the solution for this 1% that is still lacking. Regardless, in addition to this part, barley is the most. It turns into malt. There's a germination process. The seeds they generate a radical, and we have 30,000 tons of radicals per year, and we can transform this into animal feed that is going to feed our farms for dairy production. In addition, at the end of the production of beer, we have the bagasse from the malt, which is generates approximately 300 tons a year of spent grain, which we are reusing and we are selling for local production, for animal feed, or dairy production, or fertilizer production. And when we look at this, can generate 90 tons a year of protein, which is what Juan was mentioning. So with the protein that we have in our co-product, we could feed approximately 4 million people. And what is cool about that, or what makes us proud to work in this project? 4 years ago, we realized that we're gonna achieve this solution alone. We're not gonna deliver to the society what they expect alone. We can have the best team of engineers thinking of how can we have a better destination for this product, because we need an outside look. We need more technology. We need more innovation. Sometimes we consider a solution that is not feasible right now, but maybe in 2 years, with a scale and a company of our size, it may be economically feasible. I was talking to Juan. We have part of our business that's in the United States, which is called Evergreen, which is dedicated to working on this, to have the best use of our proteins. So how we want to produce bread, for example, from this malt bagasse. How we can produce other drinks or cereal bars or other products that can be dissolved in water that will deliver richer and more nutritious food to people who need it. So we've been working hard on the technology, knowing that we don't have the solution for everything. I'm going to talk about the regenerative agriculture. I talked a lot about it. We have a front that has been moving forward really well. And what I was talking about the cassava beer, we looked at the Brazilian Northeast region and we said, hey, we have a lot of small farmers that aren't able to serve our industry. How can we do it with innovation? And so we developed beers that are sold locally, Magnifica and Legítima and Coisa Nossa. They are made using cassava in these specific states. So now we can impact more than 500 small producers and families. It's a beautiful story because it's a product that we created and it affected positively the local production. And to wrap up, if you have any doubts or questions, please contact me. There's the LinkedIn and all the contact information there. But what are the main messages of our strategy? First is that our farmers, our producers, are at the center of our sustainable agricultural initiatives. We can have a great internal group at Ambev thinking about the solutions, and when we're going to implement it, the farmers say, hey, I can't apply this. This doesn't work for me. So we work in partnerships with our producers, and they are at the center of our strategy. The agricultural regenerative is critical and it's urgent, like you mentioned. We really need to do the things now, and we're not going to be able to have this sustainable agriculture, like Alessandra mentioned, without technology. Technology is what is going to really allow us to achieve our goals. This is what I had to share with you. Thank you, everyone. I hope that at the end of the day you can have a toast with one of our beers, preferably very cold. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Caio. It was really good hearing from the industry talking about these partnerships and this idea of making beer with local products. That's quite interesting. The problem is that at the very deep of the countryside we only find goats, but I mean, maybe there is also limes there, but did you know that there is a beer that is produced from lime? Oh, good. So anyway, I believe this was the conversation we wanted to have, the synergies we mentioned at the beginning of this panel. So the producer makes the product, then the industry gets this product to consumers, consumers speak their mind, and there is an exchange there. And with this communication, we don't have, how to allow ourselves any extra time to postpone these solutions. There's something I'd like to say here that is perhaps that kind of information. I know that you spoke on behalf of the industry and agriculture, so you're speaking on behalf of this side of the table, and maybe I'm more on this side. Maybe this is a conversation that could be quite simple, but at the COP26 and in the debate of the global warming, agriculture is the villain, and we who are on this side, I believe that we should defend that there is a lot yet to be discussed. I believe that there is a debate to be had. This is not an evidence. If it were an evidence, everybody would have agreed on that, because when people are under risk, people react. And acting on the possibility, we know that there is a need. We know that it is there. I would like that we could speak more openly about the size of this problem. Is it going to take us to such critical situations that we maybe need to take actions now that could result in even more hunger? So should we condemn, humanity to become hungrier today in view of what could happen. I'm not trying to enter such a discussion, but I would just like to propose that we could think together. Maybe this is why the agribusiness is not invited, because we have no defense to ourselves. We don't have marketing area, we don't have such a good research departments, research and development departments as you have in the industry. I believe that together we are powerful, but still we are quite fragmented to have the communication and the research that you have, and we don't have access to that. We are not such organizations as universities and governments, and sometimes universities themselves or governmental agencies have their own opinion formed. I apologize for bringing the discussion to this direction, but I wouldn't be able, in my position as a moderator and a producer, I've been working with it for more than 40 years. And take a look, my agriculture in particular is a regenerative and organic agriculture. I'm the largest exporter of organic lime in Brazil, maybe one of the largest producers of lime in the world. This is what I want. This is something I agree with, but it shouldn't be so heavy on our side. It shouldn't be mandatory, like, if you don't do that, you're going to perish. I think that we should make this, turn this debate into something more mature, perhaps. Yeah, so maybe we could have a chat so that we could reach this conclusion. Yeah, do you allow me, Waldyr? Yeah, when we talk about an urgent aspect, it is because of some of the measures, some of the initiatives will demand a technology that is not even available. As you said, it could maybe not be necessary, but for us to develop the packaging, sometimes for us to reach a solution, it takes us 2 to 3 years. If we don't start doing these things with a certain sense of urgency, like, if I don't start now and I won't have by 2040 a solution, well, maybe from the standpoint of the company that I represent here, this is something we don't want to run the risk of having, you know, because then you won't have a solution, then you have to wait even more time to find it. When we talk about energy, today we are starting partnerships so that within 2 years we will have renewable energy in some of our locations. 2 years, you'll see. So this is the urgency that we mentioned here, always mentioned in the case of the agribusiness. What can meet the demands of producers? I mean, it is no good of getting the NASA engineers who will develop an amazing technology, and then I go to my cassava producer in the state of Maranhão and he says, it doesn't work, buddy. So, you know, it has to connect and it has to make sense to producers. But the urgency we mentioned, it is that we should be starting by now, because some of the solutions will take very long. Just 1 minute. I believe that this urgency, I understand it, and it is already happening. I see agriculture being very fast. We are doing biotechnology and bioinput work, and what is happening here in Brazil is amazing when it comes to this field. It is amazing to see what we are achieving. I myself have a work on farm of biological multiplication. I don't use agrochemicals anymore, you see. So to be honest with you, we have an organic production system for 10 years. It has been a struggle, and in the last contract that I have with an agronomist to join our company, he accepted the challenge and he brought some other organic solutions, and I said to him, Nelson, we are giving up on being organic. And what he said was, well, I think that we could continue, because even the tools today are so amazing, so abundant. And we are doing these things. We are reaching this speed, and maybe who is outside cannot see what's happening inside. I believe that we are very far ahead. I can be sure of that. We here in Brazil are very far ahead. I'd like to add that, well, it may take us 15 years for us to bring a new solution in the field of seeds or maybe a defensive. And people sometimes ask, why are you giving a good practice training for free? Because it has taken 12 years. If producers use these products wrong, it is just like antibiotics. If you don't take it for 10 days, you make them more resistant. So we encourage that so that we can have them being used in the best possible way. And one of the things that we should have, in my opinion, is that we should consider producing more and preserving what we have, trying to strike a balance there. I don't think there is more need to open new areas. I think these things are not necessary. So how can we work on this equation? How we can balance the aspect of producing more with the area available that we already have? So there are many tools like digital tools, biological tools. All these technologies are very welcome to us here. If I could add some comments and also touching on the subject you said, the point of the agriculture being seen as a villain. Agriculture emits carbon. Yeah, is it that much? Well, I have never seen anybody bringing me the exact calculation, like how much the production of a ketchup packaging emits in carbon terms. Well, there is no mystery in terms of the calculation methodology. Yes, it could be distorted. I'm absolutely sure about that. But one thing that people are not aware of is that at the same time that agriculture can be seen as a villain, like this is a problem, like any given human activity really. When you build a home, you are emitting carbon. If you produce a shirt, if you play football and you drink some beer, you are emitting carbon. You can avoid that. But the point is that the agriculture can be the solution here. I think this is the aspect that we should be looking more at. The regenerative agriculture is different from the organic agriculture concept, but we should flip the switch of this narrative. I think that there are many ways of reducing the carbon emission. We can reduce these emissions per se. We can mitigate emissions when you don't drive your car so often. You use more effective tractors when you have a fleet of products distribution that emits less greenhouse effect gases. All these things, they reduce the emissions. But agriculture can also sequester carbon, and that has very few technologies in scale that allow that. And sometimes simple techniques can do that, like crop rotation or cover crops. Yeah, these covers, and they can be local solutions. These can be solutions that work for their respective areas they are chosen for. If you have the right choice, the right technology, the right tools, agriculture can become the opposite. Agriculture can be seen as the solution. I think that we have done very little. And when I say we who live from the agricultural business, producers and governments themselves, like Brazil, who produce in a very large scale, I think that they have done very little to avoid this pernicious narrative and flip the switch here. We are not the problem, we are the solution. I think we have done very little in this area. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, I agree. Can you hear me? Yeah, I agree with all the comments, and just another little comment. Kerry will celebrate 50 years of its existence. It began as a dairy cooperative, and this year we launched a program that is called Kerry Evolve. You can look for it at Google. This is a program for regenerative agriculture for dairy production, and the idea is the same. The solution is the agriculture. So we are spending $6 million with 3,000 producers who are producing dairy products and milk, and they're producing that in the city, in the county that's called Kerry. And the Kerry football team won the Irish Football League, and still, in 6 months, 70% of these 3,000 farmers we purchase milk from, they have adopted these measures, these best practices and technologies. We are paying these guys because, as Roberto said, there are not programs made by UN, but the companies, they have these programs, and there is a payback because they are producing milk, emitting less carbon, consuming less nitrates, consuming less water. So we are planting trees, we are making these cover crops, we are making peat. I'm not sure how you say that. Yeah, in Portuguese, peat still. But these are the farmers who explain to us how we should be doing that. This is just a small example from Ireland. I can talk to my colleagues here in Brazil. Yeah, I mean, we should be exchanging experiences. This is what it's all about. Well, this is very much welcome. We depend on one another. We can't live in isolation. Research should be available to all and serve all. I think this is it, really. We should be focusing on a future. I am two children who are on their 20s, and this is what we're doing. We are working for them. We are working for them, who in turn can have their own children. So I'd like to mention the view that the agribusiness has. We know where we are. We know where we want to get to, and we know what is the homework we have to do. So I'm not sure if you have any other comment to add. If you don't, I thank you for being present and your presence here. Take